my idea of health and why enough of us aren't healthy is because you think you need these outside things and you really don't. And even happiness is on the inside. So the world doesn't have to affect you the way it probably does if you just could go inside, release a bit of the wonderful hormones that are in there already, and we can use the Wim Hof method to do it. There's a variety of other things you can do. I think the Wim Hof method's the straightest and narrowest path. So you breathe hard, do some breath holds, breathe slow, do a little bit of cold exposure, do a little bit of exercise, do things difficult on your body, easy on your mind once a day, and you're going to see that the benefits are going to last you your whole life.
You're listening to A New Way of Living with Dan Voss, inspiring you to a new life of breathwork, cold therapy, and plant medicine. In this week's episode, my guest is Miles Lukas. Miles is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Wim Hof Method instructor. He has sat at the top of a snowy mountain with Wim Hof and shared the mats with Master Rickson Gracie, learning the ultimate power of breathwork and cold exposure. I'm excited to have Miles on the podcast today because he shares the lessons learned in an engaging way, and he specializes in improving health, mindset, and physical performance. This episode is brought to you by Ice Barrel. If you're looking for a better way to reset your body and mind through ice baths, cold water therapy is one of the fastest, easiest, and most natural ways to reset your body and mind. The list of benefits from cold exposure is endless, but for me personally, I experience improved sleep, reduced inflammation and body aches, better mood and energy. It activates and balances the nervous system. I handle stress and anxiety better. My skin is clearer and my hair is healthier. The list goes on and on. I have an ice barrel myself, and it makes it so easy to do ice baths in my backyard. Just fill it up with water and plenty of ice, and there you go. You have an ice bath ready to go at all times. The ice barrel is durable, easy to store and move around, and it's built so well. This thing just looks so cool. Visit icebarrel.com and use code DANVOSS, that's DANVOSS, at checkout for $75 off your ice barrel order. And now, enjoy the episode. Miles, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dan. Happy to chat with you. Happy to be here. Happy
Absolutely.
to continue this journey with you of sharing these tools of health.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like this conversation has been a long time coming. We have had the pleasure of connecting, probably maybe like a year back through that clubhouse room that we were in around cold exposure, ice baths and cold showers, and met so many cool people in that group, other Wim Hof Method instructors, and yourself being one of them. And I always enjoyed what you brought to the table around cold exposure and breath work and what it can do for our health and for humanity. And I'm just excited for today's conversation.
Thanks, man. And I love what you're doing, just spreading the good word of health. And you sent me a question a bit ago, just what health meant to me. And it really got me thinking. So I'm excited to share answers with you and, explore it a little bit more. Even myself, I kind of went deep and explored it a little more. So, man, it's fun. Appreciate you just, getting this going and getting my scrambled pumpkin involved in this stuff. So,
yeah,
awesome.
Totally. And obviously, so much of what we're connected with is around Wim Hof Method and cold exposure and breath work. So I anticipate that being a big part of conversation today. But why don't we start with where you got into and how you got into all of this? I always love hearing everyone's origin story in terms of where they were first introduced to Wim and the method itself. So maybe you can take us back to those origins and what got you into all things Wim Hof.
Yeah. So I was this was in 2016. Joe Rogan's first podcast. Listened to Wim on that thing. Breathed with him. If you just mention breathing to Wim, you notice this on all the podcasts. You hear it. You hear he takes one big breath every time. It's so fun to listen to him.
I love it.
And because people always ask, like, "Whoa, when do you do it? How often do you do it?" He's like, "I'm doing it all the time, baby. I'm doing it right now as we're talking."
Right.
People really wonder that too. Like, is he? What do you mean? What do you mean? Are you doing it all the time? And we can get into this later. But when you create inner thoracic pressure by taking a big breath in, that is a super powerful thing. That really, even in the method, they don't talk about it very much. It's something I've kind of discovered because I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Have done it for 25 years. It's a long time for most people. And then I also learned this Wim Hof stuff. And so I took the approach of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and brought it to the way I teach the Wim Hof method, which the approach is there are nuances. There are fine-tuned little tiny changes or adaptations. In jiu-jitsu, you might even call it invisible jiu-jitsu. You can look at two people's identical placements and positions, and one of them makes it work and one of them doesn't. And it's because it's so subtle. It's like the connection of two people is so subtle that visually it's not different, but even smaller than that, physically it is different. And so it really, just doing the Wim Hof stuff, I learned how to fine tune it in a way. People wonder like, hey, sometimes it works, sometimes it feels great, sometimes it doesn't. I'm here to tell you guys, it works. It works every single time. You get it right. You get your spine right. You get your posture right. You get the breath work right. It works every single time, no doubt.
Totally.
So the origin story, or a little bit of it, is I was becoming a creative director in advertising, and so I was starting to give more prestigious or presentations to stranger people in stranger countries, and and I was getting a little bit of anxiety from that, or I wasn't performing at the very top that I wanted to, and I knew there was I needed to get better, and at the same time I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I was competing, and I was getting nervous, and I was getting significantly nervous and having some anxiety, and I knew that a way to not get nervous is to do it more, but I couldn't do it more. Right, I could do it only amount that I could do it because I had a couple of kids and a job and everything, and so I had to come up with a better way. And basically, the nerves were so thick that I was getting. It felt sick. I felt like I was getting sick. I was like instant flu, butterflies a month out for either one of these endeavors. And then I saw the Wim Hof stuff and realized these guys didn't get sick when they were supposed to get sick, and would that work for me? And sure enough, it not only did it work, it worked so spectacularly that I could hardly believe it. And I had to really dive into this stuff more because I didn't know if I was kind of giving myself a placebo effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's obviously so many benefits. We were chatting before we hit record, right? All of the benefits that are now out there. I mean, you can simply go over to Wim Hof's website, and just about every known benefit to this method is listed on there with deep science, right? But for people that are listening to this, that hear this maybe for the first time, and they're like, hold on, I can do cold exposure and some breathing and not get sick anymore, or not have allergies anymore, or boost my immune system. Like, what's happening there for our immune system specifically?
What's the big one? So the big one is adrenaline. You are able to, and Dan, let's get into the thick of it right now, okay?
Yeah.
So people are wondering, how do I use these tools to pump my immune system up? And how do I add them to the other tools I'm using? There's other things that I'm doing that's helping my immune system. What's the recipe? That's kind of what people are coming back to me. Okay, cold exposure, breath work, but what's the recipe? Everyone wants to know. And you're almost asking, well, what do I eat? What's the on the menu all week? Well, the deal is you don't want to eat the same thing all week. And you don't want to eat the same thing next week that you had the week before. You have to use creativity to stay engaged. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. And not only that, you're not going to get the same benefits. So let's break it down super simple. We need to raise our adrenaline to probably a little bit above a moderate level than above a regular level that most of us sort of are at because our lack of probably lack of exercise, lack of outside inflictions. Like we can sit with a higher level of adrenaline than we do, but you and I have wonderful technology and we're sitting in easy chairs and we got all the creature comforts that we would want. So our bodies can handle a little bit higher performance, right? So we got my example is my aunt used to get sick all the time when she would go on vacation. She ran hot. She had an international family and just had high levels of stress all the time. And the moment she went on vacation, her stress level went down and her adrenaline would go down, right? And then she would get sick. And it's kind of the same as what the guys saw in the Wim Hof studies. Is the control group that didn't know this stuff, they would, in about an hour, they would start to get symptoms. They would start to get sick and their adrenaline would go up ever so slightly. And I think of it as a comforting tool to sort of meet them in the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys that knew this stuff, they would bring their adrenaline up higher than the other guys ever did at all, and they would never get symptoms.
Mm.
So again, adrenaline being a comforting tool, allowing your immune system to rock without you even knowing it's doing anything. Honestly, you get no symptoms. Your immune system just does what it needs to do. That seems to be a wonderful indicator of whether or not, you are going to feel the symptoms of whatever it is your body is fighting off.
Yeah. And what is, I just want to pause right there. What
Sure.
is, this might be a very elementary question, and I believe I would be able to explain what adrenaline is. We all kind of know like what that feels like and how it applies into our life, but at a very basic level, what is adrenaline? Is it energy? Is it a chemical? Like what is adrenaline?
Ooh, I think you'd call it a hormone, right?
Hormone.
Or I don't know if that's the best way, if that's the best description. It gets released from your endocrine system, and it's a hormone that gets released from stress, just like cortisol. So adrenaline and cortisol come together. But this is the great thing, man. This is super crazy valuable information that I've just learned recently, but makes me really excited because it allows us to figure out the effective dose. So the deal is, adrenaline gets released in your brain. It gets released near the basal ganglia. I just like to say that word. But it also gets released in your adrenals, in your body. But the fascinating thing is, so you got adrenaline gets released in two places. And you might also hear it called epinephrine or neuroepinephrine or neuroadrenaline. But it all kind of the same thing, other than neuro being the part that gets, the stuff that gets released near from the basal ganglia, near the thalamus. So the adrenaline that gets released from your adrenals does not pass the brain-blood barrier. How about that? So that's pretty interesting. So what does that mean? Well, it means that potentially, and this is sort of is theoretical, but you could bring your adrenaline up in your body, but not have as much adrenaline and cortisol in your brain. So now you're filling your body with adrenaline, but you're a little less stressed out about the situation or about the thing that you have to do. And I think that is the recipe for flow state. So you do something difficult on your body, but easy on your mind, releases a lot of adrenaline out of your adrenals, but less in your in your brain. And now you can walk around or participate in the activity, body full of adrenaline, mind full of less adrenaline and cortisol. And so what's the recipe then for people? Man, well, what's tough on your body but easy on your mind? It's a lot of stuff you know already. There's 4 wonderful ways to do it, and even 5 if you count fasting. But I don't know enough about that yet. But breath work and cold exposure, very easy ways to do it. Breath work's super easy because it's not that difficult. Once you're a tiny bit good at it, it's not difficult on your mind at all. Cold exposure, again, it only takes you one good Wim Hof workshop in a city near you if you're looking to do one. But then you can easily release adrenaline with a bit of cold exposure. And then also heat exposure, heat shock proteins, all that wonderful good stuff from saunas and things, that releases some adrenaline. And then lastly, exercise. Let's do something difficult on your body, some exercise that you're good at, that's going to release some adrenaline. And you've felt this before too. We all have that moment. You're like, man, I feel like I'm getting sick. I need to sweat this out. And you're thinking, I need to exercise a little bit. I need to hop in the sauna or something like that. That's it. You pick one of those 4 things. You do it literally consistently, particularly if you're going to have a switch in activity level, like you're going on vacation or something like that. Man, do one of those 4 things every single day on your vacation, and it's going to be a good one. And you're not going to get sick. And we know it, and we know why now. So that's the thick of it.
Yeah, so we're talking immune system, not getting sick. When I hear all 4 of those things, I can't help but think about the mental health benefits, right? Does adrenaline play into that same outcome of improved mental health, whether that's improved mood, reducing stress, anxiety? What's happening there with adrenaline?
Well, so you get a hormone release when you make adrenaline. I think, and this is again just me being kind of speculating. You get a hormone
Yeah.
release of probably a variety of things, dopamine, all the wonderful things that make you feel good. And so whether it's the adrenaline that makes you feel good, that's going to be make you mentally feel good, or it's the activity that you're doing that makes you mentally feel good. I don't know if it even really matters. I think they kind of come together. And most people would say that I do a lot of jiu-jitsu, but most people, anyone who does a lot of exercise, knows that the mental health benefits of exercise are, I mean, second to none. It's like if you don't do it, you're just gonna be cloudy, and you're not gonna feel the same way. And so you need that dose of dopamine to know you're on the right track, and that adrenaline.
For sure. And then is that the same for breath work and cold exposure? Like in terms of people saying that it helps their mood regulation, right?
Mhm.
They feel happier. It helps with depression. What's happening there on that scientific level with cold exposure and breath work?
So this is something people don't understand, I think, is that you have to enjoy it, and you have to be good at it. So people can have a different response if they don't enjoy it.
Mm.
So let's say, you just stick the Wim Hof app in front of somebody and they don't really want to do it. Well, they're not going to get the same dopamine response as somebody that does want to do it. And let's say too, another example would be, let's say you're doing the exact same routine every single day. Well, you are going to become less engaged. I don't care who you are. You're not going to be able to get the same mental benefits every single day from it. So that's the caveat. You might say, like, that's what you have to do. You have to add some creativity. You have to change this stuff up, and you have to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, we'll figure out how to enjoy it. That's really important to me. I find a lot of breath work practices to be quite boring. And that's totally fine. I mean, I have a company called Breath Fitness, so it's a little contradictive. But what we can do is use different cues, use a variety of changing the pace up. I'm real into that. Like we don't just breathe together in the same tempo or anything like that. No way, man. We allow people to just explore all these areas of breath work, and we go real fast sometimes, and we go real slow sometimes, and we keep your head moving and keep you adjusted and thinking about it, and it can make it quite enjoyable. So whoever finds it, and so if a lot of people, I think, will find it cumbersome and like kind of boring. And I'm right there with you, baby. I mean, I agree. It's kind of whack. You're just going to lay there and breathe heavy. I mean, no way. So you find the right person, you find the right method that keeps you having fun with it, and it can be a wonderful, lifelong practice, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm having so much fun with breath work, is that there's so many different methods and techniques and modalities, and just outside of Wim Hof. Like for me, that's how I got introduced into all of this, was the Wim Hof method.
Was it? Amazing.
Yeah, and then I realized, like, wait, there's so much more here, right? Like just historically, going back well before we were on this earth, there's been all types of different breath work that has been explored, and that's what keeps you going, right? Is knowing that you can learn new things about this entire field and experience new things. And then same thing with the cold. Like, yeah, I can do a cold shower in the morning, but I can also go into an ice bath. I can also go over to Lake Michigan. I'm in Chicago here, so it's cold from like October till about now, March, April, where it's
cold,
super cold. So, it's about switching it up, or even just going to a different part of the lake, right? Like I have one kind of beach area that I love.
Yeah.
And on Sunday I went up like 30 miles north. Still same lake, still Lake Michigan, but it was a different setting. And it's just about switching it up and finding newness and keeping it fun, because that's how you're going to make it a lifelong, experience and lifestyle.
That's it. You got to know, you find your fundamentals. You realize that, the little amounts of cold exposure, that's a common misconception, is you need so little. The minimum effective dose is like a minute. It's like a minute in a shower. It's so crazy. And the benefits are extraordinary. And you know what I love? One of my favorite things to do is because I like just a tiny, tiny dose, because I feel it, and I don't want to get too adapted. Like I moved away from, I hate the cold more than anybody. I moved out of St. Louis to San Diego because I mean, I hate it, but I do it all the time now.
Right.
And the minimum effect, my favorite technique to do is you get in a cold shower, and we are so, our bodies, our skin is so sensitive to cold, the opposite of hot. I love the example that if somebody has a cold hand, they put a cold hand on your back. Well, you can feel how many fingers they have on your back. But if they put a hot hand on your back, you can't. You just feel like an area of warmth, which is interesting. So once I learned like, wow, we are that sensitive. The showers here weren't that cold. I started. I realized, when if you're trying to bear the cold, what you do is kind of get in a little bit and then get right in, and you're like, whoa, and then now you got it right. But so I thought, well, could I get more benefits if I just went dead slow, like as slow as I could go? And so that's what I started doing. That's what I do in a shower. I start with like a hand, and then I go to an arm, and I can feel goosebumps roll across the dry side.
Wow.
So now you can create this interoceptive focus of what in the world the juice is doing in your body, what in the world's flowing around in your body, and then you just go dead slow. You let it take you a full minute to get completely submerged in a cold shower, and I think that if your showers aren't that cold, that would be the way to get the most effective dose.
I love that. It's a great idea because I often just go right in. It's just easiest for me.
Yeah, because it's cold.
Yeah,
you hate it. Yeah, it's easier.
Just get in, get out.
Why make it easy?
Yeah. I like that. I'm going to try that out. That's very cool.
Can I give you one more tip? Why make it easy? So people, I posted a picture in the Wim Hof Facebook groups today of this dude. It's the greatest picture anybody I've ever seen. It's one of my students took this picture of one of their friends they were coaching. He's getting in this ice bath that is spilling over everywhere, and he's making this raging face, and he's got a stocking cap on, and it is awesome. I love it. It's my particularly because I taught her where the coolest shots were, and then she took this one better than I've ever seen. So I'm just super excited about it. But a lot of the feedback is, oh, you need to tell that guy to take more breaths, to be more calm when he gets in there. And I'm thinking, for sure, you want to know how to control the cold and be calm. For sure. You want to be calm at the end of your ice bath, your cold shower. You want to be able to leave calm. That's very, very important. But why mask the initial engagement with the cold? Why not just fucking take it, man? Why not just take the emotion, take the awfulness, take it all, and hate it and love it, and just make it. I can make it even more powerful by embracing the emotions that I have, that it makes me have, and so that's my sort of approach. Is like, just get in there and hate it and yell if you want to, or do whatever you want, and just make it feel insane, and then get to the deepest, calmest place you've ever been. And now it's taken you 2 minutes, and you've like spanned the whole gamut of emotions, and I think that is valuable. Yeah.
Let's walk through some of this, because this is one of my favorite parts of cold exposure, right? That full spectrum of the moment you are about to get in. And it's always so interesting when I'm with people that are doing it for the first time, or I'm trying to like kind of coach them through it, and
it's the best.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like to see them like sit there and then like look around, look at the water, be like, oh shit, am I really getting in? Right? Like just look and see what's going on in their head. And I've been there too before. I have those moments. Sure. But let's kind of walk through like what's happening. And obviously everybody's experience is different, from person to the actual experience. It's all different. But for the most part, we see a lot of commonalities and a lot of similarities throughout the cold immersion experience. I guess I'll just run through like what's pretty typical for me, and then maybe you can just explain or just share your insights on what might be happening based on what you're hearing from me. So when I get into the cold, whether it's an ice bath or a cold plunge, I like to, like I said, I usually just go right in. Cold shower is a little bit different of experience, but I'm talking like straight into a tub or lake or a river. I kind of just like to get right in. I will usually take a deep breath in right before I actually submerge myself. And then when I sink in, I exhale. And that's what I try to do throughout pretty much the whole process, is just focus on the exhale. That just helps for me to kind of gain control of my breath.
Focus on the exhale, like
Long
just
exhale.
controlling long exhales. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
perfect.
real long,
Yep.
controlled exhale. Of course, I'm going to have to breathe in, but I really like to just push out that exhale longer than
I'm going to get very technical on you why I think it's working. Okay, but go ahead.
Cool.
Okay.
So for me, almost every single time, it's the first 20 to 30 seconds. I don't care how good you are, how experienced you are. Like, I've been doing this now for a couple of years pretty consistently. And every single time I get in, especially like I said, in the wintertime in Lake Michigan when it's like 25, 30 degrees, like it's just barely above freezing. Like I've had a few times this winter where I've actually had to like shave out ice, like in a pond. We actually had to take a chainsaw and like actually shave out ice, right?
Well, fun.
So yeah, when I get in those first 20, 30 seconds, it is brutal, right? I get that immediate panic where I'm just like,
for sure.
And then that's where I really focus on those exhales and just start easing into it. And then after those 30 seconds, it's like a flip switches. And then everything becomes peaceful. I can calm my mind. And then a recent thing is what I've learned from Andrew Huberman is to do some mental math. And now I'll just do a little bit of math, like 5 + 4 is 9, 9 + 7 is 16. Yeah, just to like
times tables.
I'm doing times tables, man, just to get through it, just to fight through it, and just get my mind off the fact that I'm sitting in ice cold water, and it works. I don't know, even if it doesn't really work scientifically, like it helps me get through those 2-3 minutes.
Totally.
Yeah, and then usually it's around, depending on the day, because like I said, every experience is a little different, and it depends on how cold the water is, but it's usually around 2, 3, sometimes 4 minutes when my body's just like, yeah, I'm good. That's enough. And then I'll get out.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I'll break it all down for you.
Please.
I mean, I've done over 50 Wim Hof workshops. I've done a workshop in San Jose with over 1,000 people. So I have been face to face with the pulsating neck veins of 1,000 people in ice baths, and got to. And that's one way. That's usually the way I determine their emotional state. Is I look for neck veins, seeing what they're doing. And sometimes I don't always read them right, but I'm pretty. Majority of the time.
Can I pause you really quick right there? When you say emotional state, do you mean their current emotional state as they're sitting in the water, or maybe an emotional state that they had before they got into the water, or both?
Well, yeah. So it's intense. Your heart rate goes up. And so a little bit of both, right? Like I'm looking at them. I'm literally checking their pulse visually.
Yeah.
That's my best way to see what in the world is going on with them. And again, some people you can be calm and your heart rate be high. So sometimes I would say that when I mess it up is when I think that they're still they have not mitigated the cold yet, and they're still in discomfort. And I'm like, it's gonna be fine. And then they'll look over me like, no, I'm fine. I'm like, oh, okay, my bad. I'll get out of your face. I just sometimes I'm too intense
Hands
with
on
them.
approach,
Yeah. So what is going on? So there is some that first you can't stop the initial shock of the cold. And you wouldn't want to. I mean, that is a very valuable thing. And what I think what a lot of people do wrong is they try and mask it. They try and, you can prime your nervous system up. So using the breath work primes up your nervous system in a significant way where you get to a fight or flight mode and then you bring it back down, parasympathetic, rest or digest mode before you get in, or at least, you teeter on that area. And then you get in, but your nervous system's nice and high for, it's already like fired up. So you can mitigate the cold pretty good. And I have plenty of friends and instructors and stuff that I can do it myself too. I can go in and make it look like nothing's wrong. But I'm masking what is wrong because there's stuff that's wrong. I can feel it. Do you know what I mean? So I can ignore it, and that's it. It looks cooler. I look cooler. Yeah. But I decided kind of recently that like I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to let myself feel exactly how I want, just let it go on my face because I think it's fun. I think I enjoy it more, like I already proved that I could be calm in there. That's easy.
Yeah.
But to let go completely is incredible. And so I tell people, they're like, they wonder what it's going to feel like. And I say, it's just like going down a water slide. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, but no water. It's just razor blades all the way down the water slide. And at the bottom, it's just razor blades at the bottom. There's nothing.
That'll get them in.
Yeah, they're usually so shocked. They're like, well, it can't be that bad. But what I'm telling you is it's really bad. When I want people, when they come to my workshops, I bring 1,000 pounds of ice sometimes. I go way overboard on the ice because I want them to be like, that was the coldest thing I've ever felt in my life. And it's hard to breathe because they're like lifting the ice as they breathe and stuff. It's wild. But so you said something that this is going to make a lot of sense to you. When you're doing out breaths, are you using your nose or your mouth?
Mouth.
Yes. That's what I was hoping. That's what I thought. And the reason is, so this comes from Master Rickson Gracie. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he also used cold exposure as a way to mitigate fear, not mitigate it, explore his own fear. So he would get a snorkel and stick his big mug under the water and just take in the pain and not come out to try to explore his own fear. So he was very familiar with using breath work as a power source. I mean, breath work is literally the power source of us. I mean, if you wonder where energy comes from, it's in the air, guys. It doesn't matter what you had for lunch. It doesn't matter how you slept. It's in the air, in the moment. If you need energy, it's there. You just have to breathe in a way to get it. What are you going to say?
And he was kind of tapping into all of this not that it matters timing-wise, but before Wim Hof, right? Wasn't
in
Rickson
parallel.
Gracie,
I think in parallel.
And about parallel, in terms of cold exposure and deep breathing. Yeah.
Absolutely. These guys, these were two men on missions, and Wim was fighting nature, and Rickson was fighting opponents, and becoming, really embracing the samurai spirit.
Yeah, interesting.
And being sort of the strongest person he can be. So let's talk about that breath work. I have only learned this from him. I'm sure other people teach this, but this is where my source was, and I really haven't heard a lot of people discuss it. And there is, when you forcefully exhale, so the way we do Wim Hof breaths, I'll demonstrate one. You breathe all the way in, you let it go. You notice my shoulders kind of raised up. You breathe it all the way in, you get some in your chest, guys. Sorry for all you air sniffers. Listen, you breathe in, you expand your chest, your shoulders go up. There is great reason to do that. Not always. When that stress, that's a stressful breath, and that's okay. It's like we're going to the gym for our breathing process. And then when you let go to the neutral zone. All right. So there's no air pressure in or out. If I'm sitting up, I still have about 40% of the air left. I still have all that left in there. But as I breathe out, with the breathing out, forcefully exhaling with a bit of jaw tension, a little tension in your neck, even if you go it through pursed lips and through the teeth, you are engaging with the lowest part of your diaphragm in a significant way. And you're flexing the lowest part of your diaphragm. And what Rickson would say is that you are emptying the lowest part of your diaphragm. So you create a vacuum, and then air just rushes back in. So it's incredible. You can keep that breath pattern up for infinity, and you're just going to keep creating a vacuum. Air is going to keep rushing back in while dumping the lowest part of your diaphragm and continuously breathing and keeping your core strong. This is massive. So why is it interesting to keep your core strong? Well, what you're doing is creating inner thoracic pressure. So if I breathe in, and then even if I push out through pursed lips in like some strong tension, right now I'm creating inner thoracic pressure throughout. So I have a denser air pressure inside. Okay, we're going to go into the weeds. So why is that useful? Well, if you look at what the Valsalva Maneuver is, are you familiar?
I'm not.
A little bit? The Valsalva Maneuver is medically, it's pushing against a closed airway. So if you have a heart arrhythmia and go to the hospital, they'll mechanically do a Valsalva Maneuver on you. So what it does is opens up the room for your heart to beat easier. Okay. It's just like when you're on an airplane and you need to pop your ears. You're pushing against the closed area. That would be a modest version, right? So this is when I dove into the Valsalva Maneuver, and you're not going to believe this. So a Valsalva Maneuver, you take a full breath in, lock it in for a moment, there. Just for a moment, I pushed against the closed airway, but that does 3 amazing things. So the first one is allows more room for your heart to beat easier. Okay, a little cold exposure, your heart beating easier. Does that sound like it would be useful? Probably. And then it relaxes cerebral blood flow. Now, would that help you calm down? Yeah, probably. And then the last thing it does is push blood to your extremities. Would that be useful when it's cold? Yes. I guarantee you, when we start manipulating our own blood flow, when our fingers are in the cold, our body's in the cold, it's going to be useful. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to give you a feeling back if you don't have feeling. So if the Valsalva maneuver does that, well then creating denser pressure inside would also do that to a lesser degree, but it would also do that. So if I take a breath like this, I created interthoracic pressure throughout. So it's very likely that I'm also doing those 3 things to my body. And now I'm in control of my blood flow. And now I add in a little bit of movement, a little bit of flexing. Now I'm in control of my blood flow again. And that's why I think that slowing your breath down. And again, this is not real. This is just from experimenting and from learning this stuff from watching people and stuff. But by slowing your breath down and doing these very intentioning breaths where you create that pressure, where you control it, that's why I think that is the technical reason why it helps with the cold exposure.
Yeah, I think that's everything you just explained is why cold exposure, breathwork, Wim Hof method is having its moment in the last 5 years or so. It's because we are now understanding what is happening on a physiological level in terms of how we breathe, how we can naturally warm our bodies, how we can use the cold for our benefit, how we can get into nature and not just fight it, but embrace it. Like, I think there's something there that people are starting to catch on to about the significance of it and the excitement around it and what it can do for us. Do you sense the same thing?
Oh my God, it's so fun. I mean, once we learn these little technical nuances, and just to give you one more little fun thing, Wim was stuck in a PET scan, and where they put him in a cold suit and they're tracking what his temperature was. And so every 10 minutes they would run cold water through the suit, and he was able to keep his skin temperature the same temperature, which nobody else was able to do. And, yes, absolutely, in the best way.
And if you're ever listening to this, Wim, I mean that respectfully.
Oh, much respect. He wouldn't be mad at you. He is a freak.
He'd probably call himself a freak.
The funnest. He is the funnest.
Yeah.
I've sat at the bar and drank beers with him, and he is the person that anything
I want to get into some more of your personal experiences with him. Yeah.
Sure.
But I'll let you finish up here. Yeah, keep going.
Anything you've ever seen of him is absolutely, that's you see what you get. He is absolutely like that in real life,
Yeah.
So he's crazy. And what was the where'd we go? what was I going anyway?
We were touching on just where this whole method has gone in the last several years and the excitement around it. And you said he's a freak, and you were talking about his experience in the wetsuit. They were pumping water into his
That's right. So he was able to keep his skin temperature the same temperature. And what we thought was going to happen, and this is why I love the method, is we thought it was going to be a bunch of brown fat on the back of the neck. That's where you're going to see all this stuff come from. So brown fat is just more mitochondria in the cell. Typically, we have it around our neck and shoulders. Kids have it more than adults because we all wear jackets, and that's it. Or because our moms all told us to wear jackets, right? And that's it. But it wasn't. That's not where they saw the majority of the energy coming from. They saw it coming from his intercostals. Well, so that's pretty interesting. So now if you warm up your intercostal muscles, coincidentally, your breathing muscles, you start warming up your breathing muscles, well, that's going to generate a lot of heat for you to stay warm. So you do a few fast breaths, you warm up your intercostals, then you slow your breath down, you let your CO2 build up. As your CO2 builds up, that helps oxygen release from the hemoglobin. All that oxygen that's in there is going to release from the cells easier, get to your tissues, and higher CO2 levels allow for vascular dilation as well. So now you got oxygen releasing easier, you got the warmth coming, and you got your veins dilating more. And that's kind of the original studies on Tumo in 81 and 2013 were on Tumo breathing, which is, some people attribute the source of the Wim Hof stuff, which it's kind of, he for sure learned some Tumo, which, perfect. And just kind of delivered it in a way without all the esoteric names and things. But that was how they differentiated the recipe in Tumo was fast breathing and then slow breathing. And now we know kind of that's probably why it worked. They probably are warming up their intercostals, and then they're raising their CO2 and getting that stuff circulating again. And then when they need more, if they start to cool off, you warm up your intercostals again, and then let the CO2 build up again.
Is that why people do horse stance before going into the cold and after? Is that warming up our breathing muscles, our intercostals? What's happening with?
It's got to. Yeah, the horse stance is makes some wonderful, wild chemical shifts. And when I first saw the horse stance, I got to tell you, I was almost out of the game. I was like, I don't want anything to do with these guys. These guys are real crazy, and they're doing the horse stance, and I'm not into it, man.
Every time I introduce it to somebody, they just look at me like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
And so I discovered that you had to do it for an hour to become an instructor. There you go, 2 feet in the grass, just horse stancing it up for an hour.
Can you explain a little bit what that looks like? So 2 feet in the grass, and it's like a half squat, right?
You mean you want me to get back here and give you?
Oh yeah, let's show it.
Yeah. So
there you go.
What you're doing is creating a line of tension between your legs. So I'm just going to get in a little bit of a squat. So now I have this line of tension, and then everybody does it a little bit different. But what you're doing is adding breath work to your movement. So you breathe in. I'm very precise. You know how I do things. So I breathe in on one side and then breathe out as I go across. Turn at the hips. Keep your head straight. We want to do it stylish. There's a lot of terrible horse stances out there, but they're not doing it wrong. It still works for them, but we just got to add in a little bit of style. And so not only does the physical movement make some wonderful chemical shifts, but honestly, also the awkwardness of making it feels crazy to you. You don't feel good about it, but you are out of your comfort zone in probably a few areas. Maybe it's cold, maybe you're in the snow, but for sure you hate it. And so you're just out there hating it, and all these wonderful things are happening. And it's pretty neat, man. You do it for an hour. At about 20 minutes, your knees start to hurt. And then at about 40 minutes, I think you turn into a plant because you're just swaying there and you kind of losing track of time and just waiting for, life to continue. I used to do it in my backyard until the sprinklers came on. I do it from 6 to 7 in the morning. And so I had a sign. I knew, it's the best workout. Yeah. Man, to your listeners, I have always wanted to do a worldwide horse stance on Zoom.
Nice.
And I would almost do it once a month just for fun. And we all just get together and just do it because it's insane.
I wonder if there's a world record for the longest horse stance.
There is.
There is.
And
do you know
Wim was
anything
trying
about
to
it?
break it. I don't know how long it was. He was trying to set one, I think, because you know how he loves records. And
do you know how many world records that guy has?
50. Okay, so there's a little confusion with this, guys. You're going to hear a lot of people say 26 world records he's got. He has, and I think what it would be is he has gotten 26 world records. Okay, but he has also broken his own world record.
Of course, he has.
That is. Yes, so that counts. In this number of 26, he has broken his own ice bath record several times. So that's 5 ice bath records. And so when people say that, they get a little misconstrued. He's not holding 26 world records.
Right.
He has broken or essentially gotten. Yes.
Do you happen to know what that world record is for the longest ice bath that he has?
Oh, somebody just broke it. And I heard he was kind of, and I heard he was kind of pissed. He was a little pissed. Not really he didn't act like he was pissed. He's like, oh, that's good. But then I heard who was saying it, and they said he called back, and he called them back, whoever he was talking to, and was like, you know what? I think we're going to break this one again. We got to break this one again. It was.
Yeah, he's got to.
He was about at 2 hours, and then somebody broke it, and somebody made it 3 hours. Yeah, and then I think somebody recently made it 4 hours. Mm-hmm.
How does somebody go that long and not get into a state of hypothermia?
Yes, that's a very common question. So, 30 minutes is when hypothermia kicks in. That's what you got. If you're
Right.
Leonardo
Right.
DiCaprio and you're hanging onto the board and your cute lady's up
Right.
there, you got 30 minutes to enjoy her because you're going down if you don't know the
Yeah.
Wim Hof
Yeah.
method. But
Right.
you can manipulate blood flow. And whether you or not you can do it mentally, I could only speculate. But physically, for sure you can. And it's kind of the things that we talked about. So you take a full breath in, and I would never encourage people to do breath holds in water. I never,
Hmm.
for sure. But if you take a full breath in, pause and swallow for a moment and let it go. So you just held your breath for 2 seconds. You
Hmm.
created some of that interthoracic pressure. Now you're helping your body push blood flow. And again, if you take long, slow breaths, nice and controlled, serious breaths, if that makes sense, like be very serious, like a powerful breath in and out.
Hmm.
Even, Rickson would take 1 minute breaths in and 1 minute in, 1 minute out. That's a fun practice to do if you want to get your diaphragm warmed up.
Wow. Yeah.
But you have to manipulate blood flow, and you can do it. You can be there for a while, keeping pushing the hypothermia down by, probably when you get to the 2 hour mark and that stuff, it's probably there's some mental tricks you got to do.
Yeah.
But at least initially, for sure, you can push off that 30-minute mark by using some physical techniques to manipulate the blood flow.
It's incredible. And by the way, anyone that's
Yeah,
listening to this, especially if you're new, I just want to throw out a few disclaimers. Obviously
sure.
we're all about safety. So for those that are new, we encourage you to check out Wim Hof Method in terms of finding a local workshop. Do this for your first time with a trained professional.
It's way more fun. It's harder.
It's
People
way
have a
more
hard
fun.
time getting
Yeah.
started. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And what else do we need to throw
And
out there? It's not a competition, right? We're talking about world records and how long you can go in and stuff like that. For me, I usually do 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And I
it's
was actually just with
perfect.
a group. I was at a company retreat a couple weeks back. I led some breath work, and there's a pond.
Oh,
This
nice.
is what I was telling you about with the chainsaws. We dug out a little space, and
Oh,
they,
sweet.
the owners of the company are big into Wim Hof Method. Like they're all into it. So, but we shared throughout the whole weekend, like this is not a competition. There was a few guys that went in like 10. I think one guy went in 15 minutes, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, there's no point in me trying to beat that. Right? This is not what this is about.
Yeah.
And heck, I don't
His
even want to
warm up
sit in
was
there.
tough.
Yeah.
He had a hard warm up. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I do not want to even sit in there for that long. So I'm good with my 3 minutes, my 4 minutes. So anyhow, just wanting to throw that out there for people listening. Safety is
And I
always
think if you
first.
want to safety first, and if you want to compete with yourself mentally, compete with
Yeah.
yourself emotionally.
Yeah.
So get to the most comfortable place you can get to in there. So
Hmm.
my competition, when I do this stuff, I want to do it short because I don't want to be adapted to this stuff because I want that
Yeah.
release, that hormetic
Yep.
stress and release. I don't want to be able to, have to be in there. Huberman talks about this. I don't want to have to be in there for 15 minutes because I'm doing, 10 one day, 11 one day. I'm trying to build up. Unless
Right.
you are going on an adventure, unless you're going to Alaska or something like, unless you're going somewhere and you're preparing for it, then sure, okay, that makes sense to do it. But otherwise, if you're just looking for the significant benefits of the stuff, the energy boost, the mental boost, the
Hmm.
all these things, then keep it short, man, and so it's so valuable and easy to do.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
that's good. And then back to horse stance, we were talking about how, it's a natural way to physically warm up your body,
yeah,
your breathing muscles. But I also
and
think there's go ahead.
if you want to make Hadoukens, if you're a Street Fighter fan and you
Mm,
want to start shooting fireballs,
there you go.
I think the potential's there.
Yeah, you can have some fun with it, right? I also like the psychological element of it, just being, especially when you're
Yes.
in a group and you have everybody in cohesion of, the movement, the sounds, the ooh, ah,
Yes,
ooh,
the guttural
ah,
noise.
right? And
Yes.
it just kind of amps
Yes.
you up to get into the cold. So I love the psychological element of it.
That's amazing. Me too. I get crazy. I have quite a horse dance routine.
It sounds awesome. Very cool. I'd love to hear you briefly touched on some of your experiences with Wim. Tell us more about that in terms of, what it was like the first time you met him. What are some cool stories you have with him? You had, that hike on top of what mountain did you guys hike in Sonoma?
Mount Hood in Oregon.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I love Mount Hood. I was there last fall.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Um,
Awesome.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about like what it was like to meet him, to be with him, who is he as a person?
He's the best. So the only, the only downside to meeting him in a group of people that are about to become instructors, we all kind of fanboy out about him, because
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah.
excited about him. And when you fanboy on people, then then you don't get the most out of the experience, I don't think.
Yeah.
So you'll notice they've done a better job of sort of keeping him like, hey, we're going to do pictures at this certain point, and you don't have to keep
Hmm.
stopping him and asking for pictures and that sort of stuff. And he's such a sweetheart that he'll just do it. He's not gonna
Sure.
deny you your pictures if that's what
Right.
you really want. Um, but so he's very cool, and he has a lot of admirers. And so I think that if you just treat him like we all are, treat him like everyone else,
Hmm.
and you're going to have a better
Hmm.
experience with him. And he loves the science. He loves the science.
Hmm.
So I mean, if you're gonna start talking about chakras and stuff to him, he'll listen to you. But he prefers the language that we speak now. So the
Yeah.
Sanskrit words and stuff like that, they intentionally sort of took that out of the delivery of this stuff so that we could, the language we want to discuss about this stuff is the language of science.
Hmm.
So man, you talk about scientific studies with him, you're going to stay, he's probably going to buy you a drink because he'll stay, that's all he wants to talk about is the latest studies,
I love
which,
it.
yeah, it was kind of, that was surprising for me, but, how much how important that was to him, but it really isn't. And so it kind of, that's why it resonates with me
Yeah.
so much.
I mean, that's important, when you have such a big movement that he has been a
Mm,
part of. And really, I mean, yes, he's created the movement, but so many other people, and I'm sure he would say the same thing. Like, if it takes people like you and others and all the other instructors and people like myself who are practitioners to create the movement and continue it. But obviously, he's a big piece of that. So it's important as, let's say, the leader of it to make sure you hold on to that science and keep discovering and furthering that research. Otherwise, it just becomes something that we have excitement around for a little while, and then that kind of fades away. So I appreciate that he is involved in the science.
and also it's his, like English is his fifth out of six languages or
Right.
something. So he speaks a lot of languages,
Yeah.
and he doesn't necessarily deliver this stuff in the clearest manner.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to let him be himself and get crazy and say crazy things and do crazy
Right.
things, and then we try and figure out, well, how in the world did he do that?
Yeah.
And then and then we help. Well, and how in the world can we teach other people to do that? And so he's this wonderful. He's like blazing this path
Hmm.
of eccentric thoughts and ideas. According to him, you don't have 10 senses. You don't have five senses. You have 10 senses. And the first one after, because I know somebody, it's got to wonder, because I did. He's
Right.
like, I'm like 10 senses. The first one after the fifth is a balance. He considers that a sense. And then proprioception, where your body is in space, where you are you connected to the earth, where you are, you feel the gravity. And
Mm.
then my favorite is interoception, what in the world is going on inside. So
Mm.
if you start to get interoceptively inclined, I just made up that little phrase, but it really means it. One of my favorite interoceptive things that I've been able to do recently is I can. You probably know this already, but you guys, if you have your nose is congested or if your nose is clogged, there's a lot of blood flow that goes through that tissue. There's erectile tissue in your nose, and it's not just mucus. So if you can get yourself to a strong urge to breathe, the blood, like hold your breath until it hurts. Hold your breath
Mm.
till strong urge to breathe. The blood flow will start to diminish
Mm.
in less than a minute. And I just realized recently that I can sit there and I can hold my breath and I can start to hear blood flow
Whoa.
leave my nose. Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty cool, man.
That's
I
trippy.
the listening of this stuff. It's like a little snap and pop. It's like a tiny little person is eating Rice Krispies. It's like I can
Hmm.
just, and I hear a couple of them, and the moment I breathe again, oh, I have poor nose flow already, so I can obviously tell it when I can breathe again. So, man, I encourage you guys to sit in a dead silent room, do a little bit of your exercises, listen to your joints pop and crack. You can start to hear fluid movement in your body
Mm.
to such a significant extent. And we sort of filter out all this data, but there's all this wonderful data that's in there that you can use. And that's one of them. That's one of them.
Super interesting.
Interoception. I can't get to the 9th and 10th one. I barely know them yet. So we'll save that for round 2, Dan.
No, that sounds good. I love it. Yeah, it's so fascinating. I mean, the more I learn about Wim and just the whole method, it's there's always new things to learn. And I guess on that note, are there any new, not necessarily discoveries, but conversations you're having in the community that is new and exciting that maybe just be, it might be something new that we're talking about?
Oh my God. So there's new studies that are coming out. The same Radboud University researchers that originally found out that you could control your immune system to a certain extent in 2014. The reason it's sort of all kicked off, and a quick version for some of your guests, your users, your followers that don't know, is that Wim was a daredevil before this. That was his profession. He was a daredevil, and he was doing crazy things. But the craziest thing he said was that he could control his immune system. And science said, no, you cannot control your immune system. And he said, no, I think I can. And so they had this wonderful experiment where they were already injecting people with E. coli and watching them get sick for 3 hours. And they had done it for hundreds of people. And that's the point, was to study the immune system. They said, well, this is the perfect experiment. Mr. Wim Hof, you think you can control your immune system? We'll see. We know exactly what happens to people when you inject them with this. And they found that he was able to control his immune system. That he was able to teach others how to do it too. And now the science books are changed. And if you can believe it, those guys stayed on the path because they thought this is crazy. And what they tried to do recently, and again, these have been submitted for publishing, but these are unpublished. Dan, so you're getting the breaking news that we learned in January.
Wow.
about what's the new stuff that's coming up. And I don't think I'm out of order to let you guys know, because it's just super exciting. They wanted to differentiate what in the world is happening between the fast breathing, the breath holds, and the cold exposure. What is happening across the board separated? So how do you piece them together yourself, or do you need to, what's exactly it all doing? And I can give you a little quick one. When you breathe fast, you raise your adrenaline. Okay, cool. If you add in breath holds, that higher adrenaline lasts longer. Boom, amazing. And then wonderful blood marker changes too. So if you look at, if you like to research cytokines and the inflammatory and deflammatory cytokines, the higher, along with the higher adrenaline in the blood markers, we see that your inflammatory cytokines go down, your anti-inflammatory cytokines go up. Amazing. And then again, that lasts longer with the breath holds. So the breath holds sort of sustain this thing. And then if you add in, if you were to do the cold exposure by itself, you don't see a lot of the blood work change. You do see, you don't get symptoms of being sick. That's kind of a weird thing. And we can kind of puzzle that together. But when you add in the cold exposure to the fast breathing, to the breath holds, you add in the cold exposure, now the blood marker shifts another 40%. So Wim had it right that you put these things together, there's some synchronicity, and it's quite amazing.
So fascinating.
So that's the new stuff. Yeah,
and that's just new. And that's what's so cool, is that, we're sort of aware of it, but not scientifically proven. And,
right.
And it's just starting to come out, which is great, because, for the whole field, the whole method, the whole community, you can actually point to this and say, hey, this is now real research. This is real science. For the doubters, for people that are saying this is BS, this is not true, it's not possible, we're showing that it's possible.
No, it's in the blood markers. And and we did the same thing with DMT Quest. People didn't really know. They only speculated that you could raise your gamma brainwave frequency to such an extent with breath work. It was only, it had been done a little bit of the brain scan stuff before, but it was still a bit speculative.
Yeah,
speculative, I think.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on with DMT Quest? I'm familiar with it, and I'm obviously familiar with DMT and what's happening there with breath work. But for our listeners that hear that word and they want a little bit more, Give us a little more taste.
So absolutely. So DMTquest.org is a non-for-profit that is trying to help fund DMT research. So endogenous DMT.
Mm-hmm.
So what they discovered, Rick Strassman, I think up in Michigan, was they did an experiment already where they injected people with DMT, dimethyltryptamine. It's the most powerful psychedelic ever, and these people had a significant brainwave shift. They went from sort of regular gamma brainwaves. Gamma brainwaves are the highest frequency of brainwaves, and it's sort of the shift was huge. They got the highest frequency of brainwaves to a significant increased effect. And then what John Chavez, the producer of DMT Quest, the movie, and the owner of DMTquest.org, and has been a researcher and media guy that's been trying to facilitate this for a long time. Man, DMTquest.org just has all the science after science, and he's just put it all together and changed his mind after new science comes out and stuff. I mean, really thorough looking into this stuff. He knew, or he speculated, the Wim Hof Method did it, and that it would create a similar effect as the Dr. Rick Strassman saw up in Michigan, and so he had me up to the Bay Area, and we did brainwave scans, and sure enough. Some wild stuff happened. I won't give you away all the details, but we learned some amazing stuff. And check this out. Let's get crazy for a minute.
Yeah, please.
What's not in the documentary, you won't find in that documentary. So now we're on to the second version, but we're on to DMT Quest 2. They've already done some incredible studies, again with brainwaves, with more people. Research has slowed a bit because of funding. So guys, man, I really encourage you to to reach out to these guys, to reach out to DMTquest.org and tell people that that might be interested in funding this stuff. It's really important because what we found is you can change your short-term memory, Dan. You can change your short-term memory. It took us 20 minutes to do it in the first DMT Quest. I'm pretty sure I got it down to 10. And it's so easy to test. You just there's these free memory tests that Cambridge University created. You just have to remember 6 things, 7 things, up to 9 things, and fun little puzzles. And once you kind of understand it and you can do the test regularly, and you pretty much get the same score, and then you can do 10 minutes of breath work. You can take the test again, and my goodness, if you can't remember more things, it is bananas.
So let's break this down a bit. When you say you do breath work, what type of breath work? Is it Wim style, or what is the proper way?
Yes. So for the documentary in particular, we wanted to absolutely follow the Wim Hof Protocol. So what I did is 10 minutes of the fundamentals, which is stuff that you're familiar with. It's all online. The advanced breathing is not as much online. There's less breath holds. It's quite a bit faster. So one of them gets you in what we've seen, because now we've divided them and we've done brain scans in between them all. And that's in the new one. I don't want to give up too much stuff, but we've seen they do a little bit different. The fundamentals does something different, and then the advanced does something different, and it's just super powerful stuff. So I put them both together and did 20 minutes solid.
Wow.
And that's when we saw the it looks like my hair's on fire. It looks like the machine's on fire. It's crazy.
So in terms of the memory, the short-term memory improvement, what's the cause of that? Is that the release of DMT? Like, what's happening there?
So no, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is not a buzzword, but it sort of correlates to kind of special things happening. So people having awakenings, or people, they say potentially just before you die, you might release some DMT, but we can't. You'd have to do spinal taps to know for sure. So now we're kind of speculating on when it releases, but it seems to correlate with sort of wild psychedelic experiences, and that's why John Chavez thought that would be a wonderful way to study that portion in particular, to lead to all the other things that potentially are the human capability, if that makes sense. So he knows there's lots of, or speculates that there's lots of other ways this stuff sort of takes place, but this seems to be the moment it takes place, you seem to get this DMT release potentially, and that's why we find it so valuable to study. It would be released in your cerebral spinal fluid, which is the fluid that is around your spine, a little pocket in your back, goes all the way up to your brain and protects your brain.
Yeah.
So it's that fluid, sort of the essential life force that moves around when you get into deep sleep. Your brain cells shrink and you get more cerebral spinal fluid upstairs. And the latest DMT quest, they want to help patients of Alzheimer's, caregivers of early Alzheimer's. They are helping them learn the Wim Hof method, share it with their patients, because the sign of early Alzheimer's, a couple of the signs are a lack of gamma brain waves and a lack of cerebral spinal fluid. So we know the Wim Hof method does that, and if we can help, that would be very telling and very important if we could help some people that are in that situation.
So fascinating. I was just going to ask about Alzheimer's. It's a disease that has been pretty prominent in my family history on my dad's side, and my dad's the youngest of 8, and six out of his 7 siblings had Alzheimer's. They've all passed now, but it's totally plagued his family. His mother had it. He's doing okay now. He's turning 80 in a couple weeks, but that topic is like super near and dear to my heart. So I'm like, when you talk about memory, I'm like, cool, let's get into this,
Get him out there. Yeah. Get him out there in the cold. Wim attributes the cold as his teacher of the breath work. I don't know if a lot of people know this. They try and he gets a bad rep. They try and say, oh, you learned it from this. It's 1,000 years old. And he's not telling you that it's not. But what he's saying is he went to a cold lake and he got in the cold lake, and the cold lake made him breathe, made him hyperventilate. Yeah. And he thought, well, that was interesting. What if I hyperventilated before I get in the cold lake? Yeah. Maybe it's not so cold. What if I do it in the living room? I start to have some sort of wild mental adventures, So that's when he says that he attributes to the cold that, and I believe him too, that he really learned this stuff by the how powerful the breath work is that the cold initiates, right? And then you start to control it, right? And so you feel the power, and then you start to use it, and that's where it comes from.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's so cool. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about mindset, whether that is when we're in the cold or when we're breathing, or what it can do for us after getting out of the cold, right? In terms of maybe improving our mindset, maybe, improving the mental strength. What would you like to talk about when it comes to mindset with all this?
So the clarity, but the cold particularly, huh? I think this stuff is, I think of it very mechanical. This stuff is quite mechanical. If you follow a few protocols, I would say for your mindset that the breathing is more powerful. It's like the cold makes you do the breathing. That's what happens. Yeah. So you could take out the element of the cold, you're going to remove some of the circulatory benefits. You're going to move a certain amount of, some of the hormetic stress and the chemical release, but you can get a crazy ton benefit from the breathing. I did it myself for 6 months before I even touched the cold. I thought those guys were crazy. What are they doing? Horse dancing and in the cold? No thanks. But it was so powerful for me, just the breathing itself, that I got incredible benefits, for my immune system, where I was getting sick all the time beforehand and I wasn't anymore. And then as I said, the gamma brainwave induction, or that's not the right word, but just getting your brainwaves going at a higher frequency is incredible for mindset as well. And then also slowing your breath down. So how about the study they did with rats or with mice? Did you remember the study they did with mice where they slowed their breathing, or they taught them to meditate? Yes. Okay. I'll tell you. So I think to your listeners, they taught mice to meditate. So they got them little Buddha statues and little waterfalls, and no, they didn't get them that. What they did is
I was like, cool. All right. Sounds good.
They forced these mice to breathe slower for a half hour. That's what they did. Okay. No Buddha statues, no waterfalls. And they had already impacted these mice and created a fear response. So you'd make a noise, the mice would freeze for a certain amount of time. right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that was the control group. That was all of them. Then they took half of them and they made these mice slow their breathing down. They considered meditation just slowing your breathing down. So they slowed their breathing down for these mice 30 minutes a day. And then, wouldn't you believe it, now their fear response that they had measured on these guys had been cut below half, had less than half. So it was a measurable change in their fear response.
Mm.
So man, that impact on us, and the mice have no idea about the placebo effect. So that's
Right.
great, because if it was humans they did this with, then they got to
You
cut
could
out
say
25% of the study.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what's
So
happening
you
there?
can, yeah,
Sorry, real quick. Is that
yeah.
obviously that's balancing out the nervous system, right? So that's where you're tapping into the
Mm.
parasympathetic side in terms of the slowing the breathing down.
You got to be. Yeah, you got to be. You slow the breathing down. Particularly a way to slow it is breathe with your nose and your belly a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more. You engage the diaphragm more. You're probably breathing more efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wonderful study they did on guys doing cyclists doing an 8-hour bike ride, and then the night before they had them deep belly breathe for an hour, half of them, and same results, similar results to them. Benefits were that they had higher melatonin, lower cortisol, and lower oxidative stress in their blood after 24 hours of a deep belly breathing session and an 8-hour bike ride. So there's significant. I don't think it's a chemical shift. This is important. So I don't think it's a chemical shift that happened. These mice. Now I'm just speculating, but
Sure.
these mice perhaps didn't make this fear response, this chemical shift that lasted that long, and neither did these cyclists. But what they did is engage in their diaphragm in a significant way, breathe in a significant way, engage with their nervous system in a significant way. Now they're able to perhaps modulate, control, get themselves use their nervous system in a better way later on. So it's not like they made chemical shifts that lasted that long, but they essentially worked out their nervous system in a better way. So now it's more useful and it's stronger later on down the line. So I believe that's what happened. And if we could change our own fear response, I think our fear response is closely tied to our anxiety and how upset we might get at a driver on the road, if you're on the road, or an email that you get, or your mom, your stepmom, or whatever is plaguing your life that's giving you a bit of angst. Well, go sit in a room and breathe for a half hour slow into your belly, and if it doesn't, it might just change your response to everything in your life. Well, you'll have
Seriously.
to report back and let us know, guys.
Yeah, no joke. I mean, look, and it sounds like you had a pretty similar experience at the beginning of discovering all these things, whether it's the cold or the breath work. And I was there too, right? Before I actually got into it and experienced myself, I was like, come on, there's too many benefits they're talking about. There's no way all this is true.
Yeah.
And then you
right?
experience it. Specifically now I'm talking about the breath work, 'cause that's what we're talking about. And it's like, holy cow, I can change my mental state at just about any moment, whether I want more energy or I want to downregulate and chill out. Or if I'm having a panic attack or anxiety, like I can, like you said, go breathe for 30 minutes, go lay down and breathe. And it's profound. And once you start experiencing this, and then you start learning more about breath work and what's happening there and different techniques, and it's like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it, the more fun you have with it, the more and better and intense experiences you have. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I have control over my health. I never thought I could do this, but I have control over how I live, how I breathe, how I eat, how I sleep, how I feel, my energy levels, my mental state levels, all of it. It's incredible.
Oh my
It's
God.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I mean, Master Rickson Gracie used to sleep. He'd take a 90-minute nap before he was about to fight for his life because he knew how to control his breathing. And this weekend we did 2 workshops in Carmel by the Sea. And I'm going to say this is my probably dozen. We had a girl there that had such bad anxiety. She could drive still, but she couldn't be a passenger in a car because of the anxiety. She had just kind of crazy anxiety attacks and stuff. And I gave her a bit of special attention and worked with her a bit more on the breathing mechanics. And she made her way through the Wim Hof breathing that we did, the fundamentals and the experience. And she really thought that it helped her understand her anxiety. And the reports that we've been getting back from people is that people that had panic attacks, after And if you've ever had one, man, it's a rough go, and you feel quite out of
Oh, yeah.
control. And people reporting that have used to have panic attacks after one Wim Hof workshop, they no longer have panic attacks. They understand the process. They
Mm.
understand what they were doing when they were having it, and they know how to override the system now. And she said
Yeah.
that when she left. I mean, it's only Tuesday, but I hope that she is experiencing long-term benefits of this stuff, being able to control your anxiety. I mean, it's literally one for one. Your anxiety or your heart, your breath matches, controls your heart rate, and essentially controls your anxiety. I mean, almost
Yep.
one for one. I like to say that
Yep.
breath work makes the rest work. I mean, it is just the
Mm.
throttle to whatever you want, and you can use it, and you own it. And you've already been doing it for a long time. You just didn't know that you were stepping on the gas sometimes, and that you
Yep.
were pulling off of it sometimes. So
Yeah, brother.
I
It's
hope
powerful.
encourage everybody. Yeah, man.
Powerful stuff. Very cool. Before I get to my last question here, where can people find you, learn more about you online, and then any Wim Hof resources you want to throw out there?
Yeah, for sure. Well, people could for sure download the Wim Hof app. I think that's free, and then get your own sort of regular practice going. I'm in California, but I kind of go all over. So I'll be in the next couple months. I'll be in South Carolina, and we got some stuff
Nice.
going in Colorado, and I go up and down California a bunch. So I have lots of live workshops. I do a live breathing. I do a weekly breathing class in the Japanese Friendship Garden downtown
Nice.
San Diego, which is extraordinary. We have a museum-esque manicured garden full of waterfalls and Buddha statues and coverage, and we're outside, and we get to do that every week, and we work on new techniques every week, so we explore the whole gamut of what can go
Nice.
on. And I have students from 20 to 80 years old, the whole gamut. I have regular students 20 and 80. We all do essentially a fitness class and do breathwork activities, different ones, and everybody gets such a good benefit out of it that I have to have speakers and a mic now, and it just keeps growing, and that's really exciting. We get this whole place before they open. It's unreal. Um,
Amazing.
and all my stuff's on breath.fitness. So not .com. You just go to breath.fitness, and you can see all the live events. And I got a few free things. I'm kind of a one-man show, so I'm not. If you sign up for anything, you're not going to get a bunch of emails because they come directly from me and I write them. So there's I could be better at doing all that. But just stay connected with me. I'm coming out with some fun things, and that's how we stay in touch.
Amazing. And you're on Instagram as well, right? Just, they can search Miles Lukas on Instagram.
Miles Lukas is good. Breath.fitness on everything is good. So the YouTube channel just
Cool.
got we're getting up there in subscribers. So that's pretty exciting. I'll definitely be
Sweet.
I'll have you on the podcast,
There we
and
go.
we could flip this, and
Yes,
I'd love to get into your story a bit more and stuff, and we'll have a ton of fun.
totally.
But so
Would
the
love that.
YouTube channel is I'll focus on the YouTube channel pretty soon, but I got a bunch of fun little exercises and stuff that you guys can do on there.
Amazing. Beautiful. And I
Nice
love
one.
what you said too about your students with like the demographic of age. When you said anywhere from 20 to 80, a lot of times we think about folks in their 30s, 40s, 50s. That kind of seems to be like the average of people that are into Wim Hof method.
Mhm.
But as you said those ages, I was thinking like that'd be so cool if I was introduced to this at 20 years old. And I'm grateful
Oh my
that I'm
God.
30 now. So I'm super grateful that I
Yeah.
learned all of this at a very young age, but 10 years earlier would have been even cooler. And then even on the
Oh my
flip
God.
side of that, an 80-year-old, like imagine being an 80-year-old getting into this and learning about all the benefits and incorporating into your life and improving your health when maybe a lot of your peers are unfortunately not aware of it, and they're they're on the couch or in bed. So it's just so cool to see how this is impacting so many different people, regardless of your age or where you're at in life.
That's the deal, man. These guys, the reports back are people are getting off of their high blood pressure medicine. These other
Yeah,
guys I have professional athletes that come, and this is the same class. You got an 80-year-old getting off her high blood pressure medicine. You got a professional athlete is saying that this is improving my endurance while we ride these
yeah,
techniques because it's totally universal. And I can't think of another activity other than ping pong where you can literally like from 20 to 80 have enjoy this in almost a competitive way. Ping pong's pretty powerful too, man. You guys, you
Yeah.
should see the retired people play the 13-year-olds competing for the Olympics in ping pong. It's a blast. But
Yeah.
this is the
Amazing.
second to that. Breathwork is the jam for sort of bringing people together, and everybody gets this, a similar, some kind of benefit out of it. I throw in a little bit of exercise, a lot of joint strength exercise and stuff, but again, that's universal too, man. We use body weight
Yep.
exercise, so whatever size you're coming in at, you're going to get a benefit from that.
Yes. Beautiful. Good stuff. Cool, man. So my last question for you to wrap up, and we talked about it in the beginning, is around your definition of health. So I'd love to hear, what does health mean to you?
So this is what I thought about deeply, because it's a
Yeah.
easy question, really,
Right.
but this is what I discovered thinking about this. So most of us know what we need to do to be healthy, right? But I need to eat a little bit better. I need to have a few more trips to the beach. I need to get in the sunshine a little bit more. I need to get outside a little bit more. Um, Everyone kind of knows what they need to do, and the reason they don't do it is because they don't think that they have the resources, right? They don't think they necessarily have the time to find a fully organic menu. They definitely can't afford it. They don't have a gym in their house. The gym's far away. They don't think that they have the resources to do it. So I'm here to tell you, I am pursuing a lifestyle, or the techniques of absolute toolless health. And I think that's what health is if you are healthy all the time, well, you can be without the tools. You don't need tools to do this stuff, but you gotta dig a little bit. You gotta be creative, and you gotta do the same stuff a little bit too. We can't just so I think if you can figure out how to skip the gym, eat inexpensively it takes a little bit of prep in this case, and then get enough sleep. You got to organize your life in a way to get your things done in less time, so you can get enough sleep. I think this is going to be. I think it's the most achievable for all of us, and I'm really, I have my own. I guess you could say fitness program where I don't use any tools. And I have to be honest, I'm kind of getting bored of it lately. I think I would love to step it up and use, start using some weights and stuff like that. I think it's going to be time. But I've really figured out that we can get just incredible benefits using our body weight exercises.
Yes.
I don't even do any reps. How about this? I have cut out the reps even, where I just do one rep. Or not, I actually wouldn't call it a rep. Like instead of 50 push-ups, you do one push-up. But you just do it so slow that there's absolutely no way you can injure your joints. So that's the point. And then I've kind of learned too that the frequency, the trembling that you get in when you're doing exercise, like if you do a dumbbell curl, you tremble for a few moments in between there. There is something so magical about that tremble. And I think it's the frequency of physical building. So when you get into that frequency, it's your body kicking yourself into high gear, loosening up the soft tissue around your joints, tightening the tendons and ligaments, and it's a very valuable place to be in. And I think you do it a lot in yoga, and you don't really know, but I've disseminated it even more, distilled it into it's just the trembling.
Yeah.
So whatever position you want to get in and just tremble for a good minute, well, that's going to do some powerful stuff to your joints, and that's some of the stuff that I teach in the breath fitness program and class. And so my idea of health and why enough of us aren't healthy is because you think you need these outside things and you really don't. And even happiness is on the inside. So the world doesn't have to affect you the way it probably does if you just could go inside, release a bit of the wonderful hormones that are in there already, and we can use the Wim Hof Method to do it. There's a variety of other things you can do. I think the Wim Hof Method's the straightest and narrowest path. So you breathe hard, do some breath holds, breathe slow, do a little bit of cold exposure, do a little bit of exercise, do things difficult on your body, easy on your mind once a day, and you're going to see that the benefits are going to last you your whole life.
Mm. Beautiful answer, man. I love that. I mean,
Thanks.
it just goes to show the power of the human body and the human mind, and we already have everything we need. We just got to go inward and use everything that we've been given to its fullest abilities and potential.
That's it, man. It's all here. It's all here. And I think when we get unhappy, all I needed after learning this stuff is you give me a tiny bit of sunshine and somewhere outdoor to sit there for an hour. And man, I can make myself feel so good. And I'm not
Yeah.
thinking about anything else,
Yeah.
especially on an empty stomach. Let me fast for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
Dude.
just extraordinary how you can make yourself feel. So
It's Mother Nature
go
at its
off.
finest.
Do it, guys. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's it.
Amazing.
Awesome, Dan.
Well, Miles, this has been such a good conversation. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time and everything you shared today. I think I said at the beginning of our conversation, before we even hit record, how much I'm having fun with this podcast and how much I'm learning.
Yeah,
and
totally.
This is just another one of those conversations that I learned so much, which is so funny on a topic like Wim Hof Method and cold and breathwork, which has been such a big part of my life in the last few years and what I'm studying.
Awesome.
And just when you think you might know everything, or you kind of get the gist, most of it, and then I have someone on the podcast like yourself, and it's like, whoa, there's so much more here. It's incredible.
Oh man.
So thank you.
Yeah, it's a lifelong. There's a lot of people that know a lot more than me, and I'm just going to sit around as a student and just keep absorbing it, and we share it and watch it grow.
Totally.
So awesome, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yes. Thanks, Miles. You have going.
Cheers, brother. All right.
We'll see you.